Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So for today we are going to be creating this beautiful lap zipper. You don't need too many things, it's super simple. I think this is the easiest one for us to get started with, and next week we will be implementing this into a circle skirt. Super excited. Without further ado, let's get started. If you have not subscribed to the channel, definitely do so. Subscribe, share, like, drop a comment down below. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And here we go. To get started, you are going to need a fat quarter. So if you're going to do a little shopping for this sample, go ahead and grab a fat quarter. There is one invisible zipper. We're not going to sew that today, but you can purchase it, set it aside for our next video. I do have two all-purpose zippers. They're both 7 inches. Be sure to get those two. That way we can create a lap zipper, and there's 3 different types. There's a center, a left lap, and a right lap. It all depends on which side you're gonna put your zipper on so that it is covered. You're always going to need your measuring tape, and these here are your zipper foot. The one on the right side is for the invisible zipper. The one on the left side is the zipper foot for the all-purpose zipper. Aside from these few items, you are going to need tailor's chalk. This is just the whole stash of what it looks like when you purchase it from Amazon. You definitely don't need all of them, you just need one to mark up your lines. Besides that, you will need a safety pin and some pins, of course. The safety pin will just be to give you a little bit more leverage when you are opening and closing the zipper. If you don't have one, you can use this loop turner. Besides that, keep near a seam ripper, and you're definitely gonna need fabric scissors. Before we dive into the zipper, I just wanted to show the different types of zippers that are out there. They come in all different shapes and sizes. This little white one here is a separating zipper. It comes apart completely, and these are perfect for garments where you have to completely open it and yeah, in order for you to put it on. Those are not ideal to have them in the back because it's hard for you to do it singularly. You're definitely gonna need help, but they're helpful to have. And again, as you can see here, the teeth, they're super big in some, and then some others they're super tiny, so it's definitely not limited. There are times when you can just purchase like the teeth as a complete rope, and then you simply cut off the pieces that you need, and then you'll have the actual apparatus that opens and closes it. You purchase it separately, or it comes with it so that it matches the teeth. And then usually I use this if I'm making a purse and I need to have a closure, so those are beneficial for that. Maybe I'll add that into the course as we go on, but for now we're gonna start with the basics and back to the lap zipper. So go ahead and grab your fat quarter. You're going to open it up completely. Be sure to cut it into 4 pieces. So ideally just fold it in half and then cut that half into half again. That way you have 4 even pieces. My math here was not mathing. Therefore, I only cut 3 pieces. And then afterwards, I realized I had 3 zippers. So I had to go back and make a tiny cut, okay? Don't do that. I'm telling you the math now. You need 4 pieces, so just cut 4. In order to get started on your zipper, get 2 of your pieces, line them up on the side. Make sure that it's nice and even and flush. This will be your seam allowance for your zipper. Now, ideally, if you are making a garment, your edges, your raw edges would have to be cured already, right? So if you're going to serge it. If you're going to use a pink shear, you do that prior to applying the zipper. Get your zipper and you're going to line it up to the edge of the fabric. I want you to mark where the stopper is, which is that little silver piece of where the zipper can no longer go down, right? And you're going to mark it a 1/2 inch above that as well. So you should have 2 markings there on the side, and then get your pins to secure your fabric into place. The seam allowance for this is going to be 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You are going to sew straight down, back stitch from that secondary mark back to the first, and then sew all the way back down. So line up the edge of your material, your seam allowance, to the 5/8 mark. Make sure that your length stitch is in between the 3 and the 2. This is a regular stitch length. You're gonna back stitch to the beginning of the garment and sew all the way down to the second notch. When you reach that notch, you are going to back stitch to your previous notch or marking, and from there go back down to the first. This will be your back stitching. When you reach that secondary line, sink your needle again. At this point, once your needle is synced in, adjust your stitch length to 4. This will convert it to a basting stitch, which will allow you to simply stay stitch the garment together so that it's easy for you to open up the garment later on once the zipper is applied. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, when it's between 3 and 2, you have your regular stitch length. It's not too small, at the same time it's not too big. When you reach down to your markings, the 2 notches that we made, we have the back stitching, as you can see here, and then going forward, the stitch length expands because we switched it over to the 4mm stitch length. Bring your garment, or your sample I should say, over to the ironing table, and you are going to open the seam allowance and iron it flat. This will allow you to use that middle crease in order for you to stabilize your zipper and to find your center. We'll work it out. Once ironed, open up your seam, move it around, make sure you have the right things into the right place. I was not able to find my markings, so I went ahead, well, they were there, but lightly. I used a different colored tailor's chalk just to mark it. Open up your seam allowance, and you are going to lay your zipper face down, right side onto the right side of the seam allowance. Once you have it centered, you're going to line up the stopper to the marking that you made and pin one side of the zipper, making sure that it is indeed centered and in place. To ensure accuracy, you can always slightly open up the zipper and just double check that the teeth is in alignment to the actual center seam. From here, we are going to remove the regular presser foot, sit it aside by pressing the little latch in the back of the presser foot, slide in your zipper foot into place. You're going to use the latch in the back of the machine in order for you to bring down the actual presser foot, and it should snap into place. If in the event this doesn't happen, move the lever up and down until it snaps onto the bar of the zipper foot. Bring your material back over to the sewing machine. Make sure that your stitch length is back between the 3 and the 2 for a regular stitch length. As you can see here, we are only going to be sewing the seam allowance to the zipper. I have the material folded out of the way. Open up the zipper slightly so that it's not causing any bulkiness. Maneuver the thread so that it is directly under the presser foot and not hanging off the side. From here, you are going to glide the zipper teeth underneath the small opening and back stitch. Make sure that your back stitching doesn't go all the way off of the zipper, but you are remaining on top of it, and you're going to sew all the way down. Take your time with this process. Make sure to not push the zipper teeth off the track that it is already on, because you still want it to be aligned and straight. Once you reach where the opening is, sink your needle and you are going to pull that zipper close. This is where, if you already had your safety pin fully attached, it would make life a whole lot easier. I am struggling to pull this little piece up. I mean, it's just struggling, absolutely struggling. I am using a pen to pull it out of my way, okay? So just put your safety pin on there, hook it up, and make it easy for yourself. You guys know I have no problem showing the mistakes as they happen, because I'm hoping that you learn from what you are seeing. That way you can adjust with what I am saying and not visually seeing that at times can be incorrect. It's all a learning process. Take your time, learn from my mistakes. Please don't repeat it, okay? Don't repeat it. Don't cut corners. Okay, so this is what your stitch should look like. As you can see, the stitch line difference is very evident, okay? The center is at the 4mm, and the other main stitch that we just added to secure that zipper into place should be, and it should look like this. And if it doesn't, you got a problem, then you need to take that stitch out and redo it again. Bring it over to your sewing table, and this time you are going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Add your pins, still make sure that your zipper teeth are in alignment with your center seam, and you are going to pin it going all the way down. Be sure that your pins are only to the seam allowance and the zipper itself, and are not going towards the body. I've flipped the material over towards the bottom of the screen for reference. That way you know that it's not being attached to like the other side. So just like before, we're gonna press the back of the presser foot lever to release it, and we are going to move that zipper foot over to the left hand side so that we can sew it all the way down. Once you have it secured in place, move your thread towards the left so that it is anchored underneath your presser foot, your zipper foot, sorry. Quick tip here: if you hold the zipper tape and you push it back a little, you are able to push the slider down just to give you a little bit more spacing to get started. So once it's further down, once you have it down enough, I should say, then you're able to start sewing. But again, having that safety pin attached to the slider makes life easier, okay? So you're gonna line it up to the edge of the machine, well, not the edge, but you're gonna line it up so that you can do your back stitching. Make sure that your stitch line is between 3 and 2. You're going to line it up so that the zipper teeth actually lines up underneath the little opening for the zipper foot. Be sure to back stitch, and you're going to sew it all the way down just like we did on the other side. Back stitch at the top, back stitch at the bottom. When you are sewing, when you get to the part where the slider is, be sure to sink your needle. Sink it, please. Otherwise, you will have a hot mess in your hand. Okay? Sink your needle so that it doesn't move out of place. And move your slider back up to close the zipper completely in order to finish your stitch line. As you can see here, I am using the loop turner in order for me to close it. I did not use a safety pin. The safety pin tip was, recognized at the end. Why? Because hindsight brings clarity. Bring the sample back over to your table. You're going to flip it over, take a look, and make sure everything is nice and secure. You can definitely iron it so that way it's nice and neat and flat, which is important. And now you are going to make a perimeter stitch around that zipper teeth onto the seam allowance zipper tape and from the front side. Okay, so most importantly, you're going to have to grab your tailor's chalk to mark beneath your zipper stopper. The zipper stopper was that little silver piece that was at the bottom that prevents the zipper from going all the way down and pretty much falling apart on you. Alright y'all, this will be pretty much the last step, okay? We're gonna slide, again, hold on to the zipper tape, both sides. You're gonna push down the slider just a little bit, just so that you can get started on your sewing, okay? And then we're gonna sew that perimeter. Give yourself 1/4 of an inch from the actual center seam itself. Since the zipper teeth are going to be on the right hand side, you want your zipper foot to be on your left. Your marking should already be on at the bottom of the zipper stopper. Make sure that it's not on it, but it's beneath it, so that as you sew all the way down and you're having to pivot around that corner, you're not hitting that stopper, because your needle will snap and it can break. So as usual, I want you to back stitch back to the beginning, and you're going to sew all the way down. When you get to your slider again, you're going to sink your needle. Always make sure you sink your needle, otherwise your garment will shift and you can mess up your stitch line. For here, I'm going to use my loop turner in order for me to pull the slider back to the top. Once the slider is out of the way, we're going to put down the presser foot, just double checking, making sure everything is nice and flat and my seam allowance is not rolling onto itself. But keep your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to go past that stopper, which should be 1/2 inch above your marking. Once you get there, sink your needle to your marking line. You're going to pivot and turn just like we've been doing, y'all. Just like we've been doing. go across and make sure you are back at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you are not able to visually pinpoint how far you are, then it is always best that you mark it prior to winging it, because you can have one side that's way too big and now you're off the zipper tape, and you have one side that is just flapping in the wind. And if this is in the back, you don't want it going to places that it don't need to go. So just like before, we're gonna push the slider. You have to make sure you sink your needle first. Push the slider past beyond your presser foot so that you can sew it down all the way to the end. And be sure to backstitch as always. This is your end result of the zipper installation, the lap centered zipper. So grab your seam ripper and continue to rip the seam open. Now remember, this upper part here was with a wider stitch. So once you get to your stopping point, you'll know, because the stitches will be a whole lot closer than they were before. Do not strain it to go beyond that point. We know for sure that the marking was a 1/2 inch from the stopper, so you can always measure if you are unsure from the top part as well as the bottom. And then from there, clean off your threads, and that is it. That is it. So next week we are going to be making that circle skirt with a lap zipper. And if you have any questions, drop it down below. I will see you next time. Thank you again for hanging out with me. I am happy for your growth and continued success. Happy sewing.